Our future-facing aspect of this is the D&D Digital, which will become a full play space for you to have experiences that are more immersive. Right now we're in early development of our digital experience. We can play a game, roll some dice, see the miniatures moving around in a 3D play space, but that's just the core of it.
Money, 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 must be funny in a rich man's world.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great day today. Recently, there's been a lot of discussion about Wizards of the Coast wanting to monetize D&D kind of as a lifestyle brand. And I figured I'd give you my thoughts on this. I know others have made videos already. I think Pundit did, and so did OGGM. I figured I'd give you my 2 cents here. And I'm actually kind of on two minds on this. I can kind of see why they'd want a steady stream of income. You know, after all, D&D, unlike, say, something like Warhammer 40K, they don't do a new edition every 3 years. It kind of seems like maybe every 7 or 8 years. So after a while, those revenue streams do dry up a little bit. And D&D, like any RPG, has this kind of unique aspect of having maybe only 20% of its participants, in this case, the DM, that buy the majority of its books. You know, players can usually get by with only the player's handbook, you know, maybe the odd splat book here and there. So is the desire to generate a continuous revenue stream bad? In and of itself, no, it isn't. But you better be careful when you do things like this that it doesn't end up devaluing the flagship product. Now, if you make a cash grab with no consideration of the future, you can do irreparable harm to your brand. You know, and you can end up in a worse place than you were before. Wizards of the Coast is already catching some heat for allegedly overprinting Magic cards and spamming the market with releases. Now, they say it's a timing issue and that it'll be corrected. You know, it was all due to supply chain. We'll see. But, you know, they deny, you know, they're doing that. You know, but the perceived effect on Hasbro stock kind of seems undeniable. I think it was like $103 a share in January, and it's like $57 right now. And now, obviously, they're not all to blame for that. Hasbro has different divisions, and of course, there are plenty of wider macroeconomic factors out there, too. But, you know, I think it can safely be said that Wizards of the Coast is certainly not helping lately. And you have to also kind of read between the lines because, you know, obviously a company is not always going to be perfectly forthright about the issues that may be happening behind the scenes. They're going to be a little evasive. Some of the monetization ideas that they're proposing seem understandable. You know, we all know about the movie that's coming out in the spring. They've tried that before. You know, I guess I can't begrudge them for trying it again. There was the 2001, I think, movie, you know, as well as the cartoon from the 80s. And I seem to remember a line of action figures as well. So this attempted revenue stream is certainly understandable, as I said. But I would just add that the market, you know, is more crowded than ever, you know, with all the streaming platforms putting out some similar content. There's plenty of fantasy-focused shows out there. Yes, some of them are terrible. Looking at you, Guy Ladriel. But some are surprisingly not that bad and kind of caught us by surprise, like House of the Dragon. Getting people into the theater to see a D&D movie based solely off of its title, it's not a guarantee of success. Now, I'm also sure they're going to push the usual out-of-game tchotchkes, t-shirts, coffee mugs, plush figures, you know, and so on. That's kind of just part of our consumer culture right now. But really, nothing has the potential to do more harm than the sea change of forcing their player base to play the game in a way it was never designed to be played. Now, many of us are pretty dubious about the online revenue streams that are absolutely coming down the pike. They're getting ready to roll out virtual miniatures for their push to make more people play the game in a complete online environment. Now, I think they should be serving this market, but only as much as needed. It's obviously here and here to stay in some manner. But they should be making a renewed push to get people to play the game together in person as much as possible. That is the heart and soul of this game. And while it might be its past, you mark my words, it will be the future once again, and something Wizards may have to learn the hard way. There are claims of a DM shortage right now in 5e. But what's going to happen when DMs are asked to either create or buy these virtual online dungeons that they'll be pressured into using? By the way, I heard RPG pundits say that Wizards of the Coast is going to have the right to any dungeons made on their platform, which is actually pretty amusing, devilishly so. Are the DMs going to have a stable of virtual monsters that need to be purchased? Are their players going to be upset that they've bought 5 different poses for their virtual miniature, but the DM can't afford monster pack number 2? So they end up fighting a stand-in token instead. I mean, what if the DM just doesn't have the time, to technically create that knight's dungeon? And they just want to go old school with just descriptions and maybe just some rudimentary mapping. Again, are the players who have these figures going to be irate? Is the DM just going to be worried about hurt feelings like some kind of store manager? That might just be the case. It seems they're putting more stress on DMs than ever before, at a time when there's supposedly a shortage of DMs in 5e. They have to be like an online show host now, instead of just kind of rolling dice with friends the way it used to be. I mean, it's got to be draining. At least in person, your batteries kind of get recharged throughout the night, with some good human interaction, snack breaks, tell a few jokes. We already hear horror stories about these lunatic players demanding that their DMs, be like Matt Mercer from Critical Role and voice every NPC in a different way. Now it's looking like they have to be a light computer programmer as well. All this in addition to knowing a new rule set that'll be coming. And of course they have to buy it all too. The closer this game gets to like a massive multiplayer online game, the worse it's going to fare. People are just going to make that decision that, well, I could get the same sort of experience by going through an MMORPG with a friend. Look, I know I'm old, but it just isn't the same. I'm sorry, it isn't. It can't be. It's such an impersonal environment. My son was playing in a group like this, and he's a zillennial. He didn't like it at all. Maybe he's old school too. You can't go to a Broadway play and then to a movie at your local Cineplex and tell me it's the same experience. Now, they can both be entertaining for sure, but the play has just got to be more intimate and human. You can't fool your own mind. I mean, look, Zoom meetings are just cold and dispassionate, and this is nothing more than a casual Zoom meeting for fun. So will Wizards get some revenue out of their online push? Absolutely. Will there be a backlash against all of this online only sort of fraternizing? I would say almost certainly at some point. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but somewhere down the road, I think there's going to be sort of this great awakening, revelation about how much harm, social media, and this impersonal environment we put ourselves in is doing to people. I don't doubt the need to have this as a better than nothing option. But it's like the difference between talking to a virtual friend in Discord and having a beer with, a real friend in your living room. Not even close. I think a lot of it is simply because, we are parenting society. I mean, how often do you text rather than call? I know I do far too often. It's a hard habit to break, but it's certainly worth trying to increase your human interaction as much as possible. We have a weekly D&D group every Friday in this very room, and it's important. I'm sure the spouses over the years wonder, why it's so important, but I would argue that it is. Contact with friends and humans face to face, having a good time, it makes your life better. D&D is just a better experience from what I've seen when it's in person. So go to your local game store and try to find a group, if you're struggling. Don't just settle for an online game. Just make sure that they're not those X card weirdos. Then it probably is better to play online or not at all. That's all for now. I have a live stream coming up with Barrow Maze author Dr. Greg Gillespie on Wednesday, December 21st at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is actually tomorrow as this video drops. I hope you guys can tune in for that. We'll be talking gaming, of course, but maybe some other stuff as well. So listen, you guys have a great, great rest of the day. And until we talk again, take care.
What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody.